When a task is once begun, never leave it until it's done. If the labor is great or small, do it well or not at all.
In the 1940s, the fight game was wholly controlled by the mafia. The sound of splashing water was often heard throughout fight arenas, as boxers would routinely take a dive at the behest of the mob. But in Archie Moore, the underworld figures found a man of artistic purity who was uncooperative to their ways. A fiercely independent man, Moore refused to play by the rules of the crooked game and would rather wait a decade in career limbo than have to adhere to the schemes of organized crime.
The doors to the title room were shut. I was kept from fighting for the title because the people who shut the doors knew that I was an honest guy and I would not stoop to any chicanery in boxing.
Almost all of the significant boxing matches that generated big money were being made in New York, but that was mob territory. So Archie set out as a traveling vagabond, searching anywhere and everywhere for a promoter who would organize fights for him. But word quickly got around of the threat that Moore posed, and managers hoping to one day cash in on their fighters unashamedly and openly steered clear of a Moore matchup.
I saw many fighters whom they wouldn't even make good sparring partners for me, fighting and getting $12,000 for their purses. And I began to ask myself, why is it that I can't get enough fights to earn $300 a month? Am I the biggest fool in the world? Something has to be done.
For nearly a decade, Archie watched many a fighter win and lose the light heavyweight title, all the while holding the rank as the #1 contender. Unwilling to compromise his pugilistic integrity, Archie continually refused to form a connection to the mafia. If this gross injustice of being sidelined were to end, Moore would have to take matters into his own hands.
Archie realized that the only way that he could get a fight, because he was so good, was if he could somehow get the press on his side. And so he was his own public relations guy.
When I was a sports writer in Philadelphia, they used to write 8, 10-page letters to me.
You would write full, long-page letters to every writer, columnist, yourself, longhand, right? I would write in longhand. I'd write 35 letters each night. You were a one-man PR firm for yourself. Well, I tried to be, and I knew that that was what it would take to get me the ink that I needed.
Joey Maxim was the light heavyweight champion in 1952, and he stated that it'd take $100,000 for him to agree to fight Moore. Archie's attempts for media coverage were well received, as there was enough interest in the bout for financial backers to put up the cash to meet the champion's demands. Now, with 39 years of age and 17 years into his career, Moore finally had his shot. The world would learn that night that Archie Moore was boxing's ageless gladiator, wise in all the ways of the fistic arts.
Winner and new champion of the world, Archie Moore!
I won the title, and I received $800 for my end of the purse. Maxim had his $100,000, but I had the title.
For over a decade he waited, while the so-called powers that be pretended not to see his brilliance. But when Moore finally had the prize, nothing could force him to loosen his grip that was holding on to the championship. 40 years old be damned.
We used to run about 14 to 15 miles a day. And man, I got in such great shape because I was real conscious of the fact that everybody was calling me the old man. Well, he's washed up. Well, they've been saying that for the last 10 years.
Time and time again, Moore denied Father Time, forcing the light heavyweight newcomers to wait a little longer for their time. Archie would eventually set his sights on the heavyweight champion, Rocky Marciano. Moore, a true publicity hound, constructed another campaign tour that could not be ignored.
Well, I think if anybody has a chance with Marciano, I think you're the only one around that is, Archie.
Well, I appreciate that because I was going to say that myself.
Oh.
Do you feel, Archie, that you can knock Marciano out? Of course, he never has been. Well, that's always the first time.
Archie Moore, you certainly have created a lot of interest in this fight. I'm so glad the match is made, and I'll be ready on September 20th for the fight of my life.
I was trying to make an opening here,
but Archie did not cooperate. Then Archie hit me a pip coming in and had me on the floor.
Proving to be more than just a bump in the road for Rocky, Moore fought valiantly. But the 42-year-old would eventually succumb to what Marciano would later say was the most punishment he ever dished out.
He is one of the best, the gamest, and he certainly was in there fighting all the way. He is a top-notch challenger.
Years later, when Archie had reached an age that was deemed to be far too old to remain in a profession that is practiced by young men, Moore not only fought on, but his most spectacular performances were still yet to come. At 45, Moore was matched against the hard-hitting youngster, Yvonne Durrell. It began with a near-disastrous opening round for Archie.
Get him, and he got dead with a right hand to the jaw.
I was amazed that this guy can really hit. I said, well, this is the kind of a fight that every fighter would love to be in.
Came in with a beautiful right hand shot, and Moore is down again.
Archie down again, and the crowd thinking this surely is the end of a great career. Somehow, however, the old champ kept on keeping on. By round 11, the spectators began to realize that Archie must be invincible.
The bout was a sensational display of his recuperative abilities, but also a perfect representation of Moore's career. No matter how many times he was knocked down, no matter how many setbacks he faced, Archie never surrendered.
Now Burrell seems to be on his way as Moore hangs him to the canvas again. Moore back after him once again. And down he goes again with a clubbing right hand. Struggling at 9, 10, he is out. Man, oh man, what a dramatic turn in this fight.
He was Miles Davis in boxing gloves. Masterfully, he played his opponents, laying traps, creating techniques that modern boxers use to this day. Moore was an underpaid, underappreciated overachiever who showed resilience both in and out of the ring, retiring with more knockout victories than any other fighter in history. Archie Moore reigned as light heavyweight champion longer than any other man who held the title, and it is very possible that these records will forever be unbroken.
I'm Archie Moore. I am a fighter.
Archie Moore was so good that in the final boxing days of Joe Louis, he integrated Archie Moore's style into his repertoire. Archie Moore was that good that you watch him and learn from him.
The extraordinary trick-like defense, which involved this. And they found it difficult to penetrate the defense. His arm would be across his body, and his other arm across his jaw. And he would watch.
I've been boxing a few light rounds with Archie today, just joking around.
No kidding.
Yeah. Old man's still pretty fast. He's one of the greatest in all history.
Introducing the contest, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to bring into the ring a man who is one of the legends, ladies and gentlemen, in world boxing, Mr. Archie Moore.
Well, a big reception for Archie Moore, one of the greats of boxing.